MLW Confusion. I'm your host, Rob Cameron, bringing you all that you may or may not need to know about Major League Wrestling, or maybe not. Whatever. The important thing is this week we have special guests sitting in the studio with me. Backstory is that ever since I had the Wizard CZ on the show, I've been fielding offers from various beings with varying capabilities, whether it's prestidigitation or incorporeal forms coming my way. The issue is, though, is most of these folks, once they this is not a magic podcast. This is a professional wrestling podcast, and for better or for worse, there's not a whole lot of magical beings in the realm of professional wrestling. However, one did come across my doorstep, put forth a very convincing argument as to why to do so. This week we have Auntie Hydie, dear old Auntie Hydie, appearing on the show. Go all over the place, talking about her powers, where she comes from, and why someone of her level of power has chosen the realm of professional wrestling in which to wreak havoc. So we will have all that and more coming up here momentarily. So really, actually, let's face it, if you've heard my rant last week, I'm not just going to, kill too much more time. So let's get the ads out of the way, and let's sit down with Auntie Hydie. Hey, folks. MLW Confusion's become a veritable hub of shopping and treats and all that sort of good stuff. Whether you need a sugar-free alternative to energy drinks in the form of Raise Energy, or maybe even, top-of-the-line ice makers, coffee machines, and other household appliances, or, well, let's go crazy, and you can even get WWE licensed apparel, all through my links section. All you got to do is wander down to the descriptor of this week's episode, check out the various links, click on them, and go shopping like you normally would. Heck, it's no difference. You just came in and just said Rob sent you. And that way, you can get the things you need, maybe even at a discount, and the podcast gets a kickback as well. So be sure to check out those links. Thank you very much for listening. Back to the show. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. MLW Confusion. Rob Cameron, your host. With me, as I said at the top of the show, got a very special guest in the studio. She is the corrupter of souls. She is dear old Auntie Hydie. Hydie, how are you doing this evening?
Hello, Rob. I am doing fine tonight. How are you doing, dearie?
I am doing wonderful. It's not often I have a guest of your stature coming in the studio, so I am over the moon for this splendid occasion.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine, dearie. It is. Thank you for allowing someone of my stature to come in. I do apologize ahead of time if some interference happens with your equipment. Unfortunately, being a creature like myself has caused some distortions, which you may have seen from my promos, but worry not. My faithful servants, my little voidlings I like to call them, they've equipped me with some seals to suppress my nature, my power a bit, so it should keep any interferences to a minimum. But no promises.
Well, we knock on wood. I don't plug it terribly much on this here podcast, but I am a little bit of a student, mere novice at best, but a student of some of the occult arts, and I know sometimes we get powerful beings and electronic equipment, and specifically recording equipment tends not to like those beings terribly much, but we will power through things. I mean, if nothing else, it can't be any worse than having the Wizard CZ on here with his magical powers of prestidigitation and whatnot.
Was that the one that was 30 minutes of static?
Thereabouts. I don't know. Sometimes when he talks, I just zone out anyway, so it's static to me. Just joking, CZ. You know I love you.
No shade to CZ. It happens to the best of us.
He's used to it by now. I'm a terrible host, a terrible human being, so it is what it is. It's you get the entire package when you run around with the Confusion podcast folk. But enough about me. Like this is supposed to be about you and your journey through this realm, specifically through the art form of expression known as professional wrestling. So
Yeah.
let's start with the overly original question that no one's ever asked anybody before. But why pro wrestling? Like what made you go like what made you like fall in love or like deem like wrestling to be a worthy entertainment?
Well, I'm going to give you two answers because this I don't. I think I might have neglected to mention this, but this body is not mine. It belonged to someone else, someone who created me. Fortunately, they have quite passed. I am a hide without a jackal. I'm a reflection without a body or person to reflect. But this body is mine, and I am free to do whatever I please to indulge in this world of violence. But my first answer is going to be her answer. Her answer is that, well, she grew up watching wrestling and had to pretend to not enjoy it. But I was there and I saw it. And around the time that she was, before I came back, she was inspired by a DVD called The Twisted and Disturbed Life of Kane. And Kane was one of her favorites. And it's unlike a lot of those DVDs. There were wraparound segments, in character ones, of Kane in his serial killer maskless version. And that sort of, that delicious bloodlust every time he spoke. It awoke something in perhaps me. Oh, but that's, the further details about that are a bit personal, a bit painful. I rather not bring down the audience, but my reason, well, I may not have had a body prior to taking this one, but I was always there with her when she was growing up, and I was watching wrestling with her, and it was always so interesting. And when I finally had a body and I finally had a life of my own, I wanted to indulge in it. Oh, because of this beautiful world of violence, I can engage you with it. And not only is it legal, but also the people love it. It is incentivized. People cheer for me, people boo for me, and I get to grind my opponent's face into the bloody mat. And it's also a place in this world of the mundane where people still believe in magic. They believe in monsters, dead men, trailed by blue lightning, masked demons. Well, patronages being determined by a child on a pole. But aside from all that, it makes the fantasy real. And a creature like me needs that. For details I might disclose later, but anyway, you were saying, you were going on. I've prattled on long enough.
Prattle on all you want. This is your time to shine. But I agree. Like wrestling is an art form like no other. One where, as you put, violence is accepted, encouraged, and incentivized if you find the right place to do it. And two, that there's always the theater aspect of it, again, where you have the applause, you have the jeers, and then the sheer theater of ways to elicit said responses, whether we have variations of high flying brutal gladiatorial brawls, or even Judy Bagwell on a forklift, the full gamut of entertainment.
Oh, the sheer beauty of it. I absolutely love it. And even though all that people can see is her face, her flesh, they still believe in me. They still say Heidi. They acknowledge my existence. I can't get something like that at a regular 9 to 5 office job or at a construction site. No. Wrestling is where I can truly live.
And again, it is a modicum of celebrity and heroes, villains, and it's what in a good live show, like that's what we're talking about on the way home. And how I'm thinking like how I want to phrase this, especially in the independent level, but it's so much more visceral being able to go to see these things live and see your Auntie Heidi's or Danhausen's war. Well, I guess he's no longer just Warhorse, but Jake Parnell, etc. But that's the magic of independent wrestling. That's kind of why one of the reasons why this podcast exists, and then by proxy why we're having Auntie Hydie on the show, because you are wreaking your own unique brand of havoc throughout California. So we determined kind of the why of wrestling. So like of why wrestling itself, but what drew, if nothing else, what drew your visceral form into the step of actually training to be a wrestler rather than just committing acts of violence on the street or vigilante work.
Oh, yes, yes, you can. I mean, sure, you can. I mean, I've. Well, I'm trying to explain this without saying anything illegal. Because let's just say, when I first gained a physical form, I did not have the knowledge nor graces of someone who belongs in this world. So I ended up. I guess you could say, institutionalized. But thankfully, someone had caught wind of my antics, had paid for my release, and I was hired to be basically to be a bodyguard for Millennium Pro Wrestling. And I figured, why not? It was serendipitous. It was the world of wrestling I absolutely desired. So I basically continued this process, and not to mention I had my own freedom because of it. So I kept going, I kept training. I trained there, I trained at Santino Brothers, I trained at Knox Pro, I've trained at all sorts of places, and I cannot wait to keep spreading myself across this bloody country.
I say Santino Brothers is veritable royalty, at least out west. So you're like, even someone in the Midwest has to acknowledge that you've gotten trained by some of the best in the country, which honestly makes your brand of mayhem that much more scary. Which again, that's how we this is how you're making your way into the Midwest, is your brand of violence that you've committed into say your Millennium Pro, which I do want to at least sojourn to that briefly, because that's been kind of your we'll call it a home base, headquarters maybe, or at least
Oh,
where you seem
yes.
to have done your a majority of your career in matches. But in addition to swathing a path of destruction, you actually have had title success over there, having what was it, 6-man tag team championship, and then the world championship, correct?
Oh, yes, I was a 2-time tag team champion. First one with my old team Figgy and the Sweet Fish. That was from days of past, back when we were in Moore Park. I was temporarily another, or at least a recent. Actually, no, that wasn't as recent because bloody pandemic got in the way. But basically, in 2019, I was also a tag team champion with Bobby and the Beast. Yes, my tag team partner, Bobby Boy. And we basically took out the millennials. We had a hard fought victory. This was part of a lovely story where I was trying to find a proper friend. And I acquired a little invitation that stated I could acquire a tag team title chance, but because I was a loner, people were flocking to me. I was attracting vultures, essentially. And Bobby Boy, he was the only one I actually trusted. And unfortunately, when we came back after the pandemic, he had replaced me with his other tag partner, Cody Prince. We lost the titles, and I had a downward spiral into absolute madness. Well, actually, that's a bloody lie. The spiral was there. The problem is Bobby Boy's betrayal made it worse. And and then I wanted to, but I had a chance to not fall into the abyss when Rebel Storm came to me. He was a great hero in that area from San Diego. He offered his friendship to me, but I had already consigned myself to the dark, to my own madness, that I betrayed him. And there was nothing left for me. I found the void. No, it was part of me. I just threw myself into it. Okay.
Very okay there.
Apologies, dearie. It's a sore spot for me. The void is where I now draw power from. It's what I use to corrupt. It's why I'm now the corruptor of souls. It's quite funny, really. My name is Auntie Hydie, and now I have a method I can inflict that hide-ness to others. But through that power, I gained the MPW World Heavyweight Championship from Miggy Rose at King of Extreme, and it was beautiful. I held that title aloft, luring all sorts of proud gladiators, fellow warriors to grab it, the brightest of souls that I could smash down in my path, spreading corruption as I went. But eventually, I let the crowd get to me, because they stopped booing me. They started to cheer for me. That warmness, that light, that friend, that what I desired was coming from the crowd, and I was starting to embrace that warmth. And because of that, I got careless. When I was up against Danny Devine, the very man whose visage is in my background, he was falling to his dark side, to his darker instincts. And it was because of his brother, Brendan Devine, who I'd previously beat. He was pretending to be one of my minions, one of my precious voidlings. And it's quite easy to do, since my voidlings wear hoods and masks to mask their appearance. I've been told they're very self-conscious. They are quite... well, someone did take a look at them, and they were traumatized in utter terror, so they wear the masks. But that's a tangent for another day. But Brendan Devine pretended to be one of those precious voidlings, and he sucker punched me from bloody behind, leaving me open to be taken out by Danny Devine, losing my title. All because I let myself feel that light, feel that goodness. I can't keep making this mistake. I have to fully let myself sink deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. But that's a story for another time, dearies. Hopefully I didn't bore you with the details.
I'm actually very fascinated by they call it the warm and fuzzies that came about it, just because I know stereotypically a lot, fans love, dominant figures within in the realms of combat. And so like regardless of how, nefarious they may have seemed to get to where they are, like once you start producing results, like you gain that respect. And
Yes.
I'm curious. So was that the first time the fans had like started to actually embrace you?
No, I've had a tumultuous relationship with morality. Well, my early career, I was quite the baddie, but people understood me as a misunderstood soul, a little misfit trying to make their way in this world, a creature trying to learn how to be like a proper person, a good person, even though I'm a monster by nature. Though I think it's because I try, even though I fail miserably. I still put in forth the effort, and people seem to enjoy that, especially when I was trying to acquire a friendship of someone who I believed to be the beacon of MPW, Brendan Devine. This was back when he was the self-absorbed millennial, and things did not end well. I That might have been the start of my downward spiral, because I've had a history of ill deeds. In fact, the first use of my power, which I didn't realize it was my power at the time, I thought it was someone else's. Turns out he was siphoning off of me. Turns out I was part of a cult called the Crescent, and my power was used to brainwash people. So I've had misdeeds in the past, but for some reason, sometimes people will still cheer me, even when I'm being completely evil. Maybe, like I said before, maybe it is because I try to do my best, and people seem to sense it, I guess. But when they boo me, especially when I took control of around the time Shining babyface, if that's the proper term, J2 Mattioli, and I was stringing him along like my little puppet. People were booing me, and the boos were just absolutely delicious. I also liked taunting his student rebel storm. It was a beautiful story. I Once my control was broken, everyone was cheering, and I believe the phrase was babies being thrown, if that's how you want to describe it. And I hated it. My precious monstrous puppet had left and struck me in the bloody face. But we all recover. We all recover. In fact, later on, that's when I found my power and got the title, so it led to greater things. It led to interesting things. Again, time for a story for another time. So, dearie, what do you like about the dark, the supernatural?
Hmm. How do I want to without going into great detail? It's it's the things that are there that aren't there that we never will have. Like we never have the answer for. It is to counteract science. It is like the dark matter of our physical realm, something that can be sensed, but not necessarily. I don't want to say not necessarily touched because it can totally touch you, but a lot of times it is there. It is there for a long time before it makes itself known, and so we have the supernatural. We have this world among us that we can't perceive, and then it becomes, not that it wasn't real before, but it becomes real to us. Like it makes itself known, and that's the part that is fascinating to me. Is the things that have always been there, but are now to be seen.
Oh, that is absolutely beautiful. In fact, that's sort of how I am. I wasn't seen. In fact, my creator, she was the only one who could see me, could believe in me. And unfortunately, children usually have to outgrow their imaginary friends, and if you don't believe in something anymore, it dies. Unfortunately, I was quite sentient. So, do you know what it's like to have your very existence denied, stripped away bit by bit?
I can't say that I have.
It is an unholy combination of pain followed by extreme emptiness, almost at the same bloody time. And you feel each part of your body unravel until there's nothing. If it wasn't for her remembering me, that could have been it for me. So that's why I tend to be a bit sensitive when it comes to believing, not believing in things. My apologies, my
But,
apologies.
but to turn this into, I don't know, we'll call it uplifting, but but you can only build yourself once you've been stripped away. So,
I guess I did so literally.
I say some folks more literally than others. But now, in your case, now you have control. Now you have power, and we've not really talked about the powers terribly much. You've referenced them, whether it's the mesmerization and now the physical form of the corruptor. Like, are you willing to talk a little bit more about the especially the physical form of the
Mm-hmm.
corruptor? We don't we usually hear about these things in vague concept. We very rarely get to like actively touch it, like before it touches us.
Well, I suppose. Well, the thing is that, I mean, I guess if I had my own body constructed for me, that would make more sense. But no, this lump of flesh, this suit of flesh, I am bloody wearing and smacking right now. It's like I said before, it belonged to her. Unfortunately, she has passed. It Well, anyway, but basically, when she did pass, I hoped that she would still partially be in there, so I, out of moment of panic, went in and I ended up taking control of it because there was nothing. It was empty. But it sounds weird, doesn't it? But I won't say how she passed, but she's gone. This body is mine to use, and I do try to maintain it. I think it's still human. Yeah, I think it's still human. I think it can still get sick and all. But occasionally I do cough up this lovely black liquid. So that might come into suspect. And this lovely black liquid I'm holding, which has my corruption, is basically water from the void itself. The void is a weird place. It is a place of water, darkness, and ice. There's a lot about it I still don't know. I mean, I know that I'm tied to it. I know that I cough it up. From time to time, I know I draw power from it. Well, I mean, it used to be actually, I do know that it used to be a place that I could visit, but something happened to it. It just became infected, and it just filled with water and just kept going and going while I was having my downward spiral, and it just consumed me. And its eyes, its many eyes, I can see through all of them. and I see what I don't have. I envy so much. I want to reach out, grab it, and steal it from whoever comes in my path. And it's weird, really. But it's also so intoxicating using that same foul power to spread myself, to bash my foes into the mat. But among my powers, to get back on track, I've done hypnotism before. It's not something I like to do too much, because if I want to make a full link with somebody, I have to corrupt them in a sense. I have to have a link to begin with in order to gain full control. Outside of that, I can do little bits of control, just little bits. It's a little exhausting, so I prefer to do it outside of the ring, like in an ambush scenario. Say some bright soul happened to have finished a match. He's weakened. He's maybe emotionally compromised, and I can just come up from right behind him and grab him. But yes, other things I've done is I've actually used dolls to bind souls to my will. That was an interesting development. Let's see. I've teleported before. That's very nice, but it can be a little exhausting sometimes. So I try not to do it too much. And also, when I'm not using this body, when I'm not using this fleshy body, I can leave it from time to time. I just put it off to the side so that it sleeps, and I've actually entered people's dreams. It's so easy, really. It's a place I can find, really. If I go underneath a bed, go in a closet, I can find a dream. And I've actually pulled people into little dreamscape scenarios, and I've chased them around. It's so beautiful. I mean, sometimes I use it for pranks, sometimes I use it to terrify them or to exhaust them before a match. I remember doing that to Delilah Doom. That was beautiful. I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. I have other powers, but it's there's a lot, but to put it all into words is just might be a little complicated. So we're just going to end it there for now.
Wow, that's fair, and that's you've already demonstrated, or at least given off a list of a whole myriad of abilities, which, like, honestly, should make you it makes you the terror in the ring that you are, and obviously, if you're invading dreams, terror outside the ring as well.
Oh yes.
But speaking of terror, I come upon this, and I just want to bring it up just to throw it out there. I don't know like how I would phrase it to a question, but I'd never seen anything quite like it before. But the Compton Christmas Parade, I have never seen like a pro wrestling attack happen in the middle of a parade before. Like, could you at least elaborate that situation for the listeners at home?
Oh yes, the Compton Christmas Parade. Oh yes, around the time I was on my path of destruction as the Void King. But because this was a special occasion for the people of Compton, I decided to go back to my usual auntie form and play nice for the adults, for the children, for all the little souls out there. And while I was playing nice, while I was being a good auntie, Lois Grain basically got it in that thick skull of hers to attack me mid-display. Now, granted, we are wrestlers, so violence tends to follow us wherever we go, but I was having a moment! And oh, yes, I was prepared to throw her on the bloody concrete, but she just had to elbow me in the face. But the fight was broken up before things got a little too extreme. Plus, also, we don't want the authorities to be brought in. We wouldn't want that to ruin the good cheer of the Christmas parade. But us wrestlers, we're like little violent cats. We just go everywhere and we just bring all sorts of chaos with us.
That's something, if I can just nerd out for a minute, and like that's something like I miss about like hearing from the golden days of wrestling, where you like the wrestlers would be discovered in a hallway at the hotel, play doing what normal folks do in their off hours, but then like the hotel like hotel security or another guest of the hotel would see two rivals walking down the hall, and of course, wrestlers being like cats, saw each
Mm-hmm.
other, then had to start fighting in the hotel hallways and whatnot. And man, you don't get stories like that anymore. That's kind of like took me back, just seeing footage from the parade. And I don't think I've ever seen that sort of wrestling chaos happen in, let alone like in a parade, but let alone a Christmas parade. And like that filled my little wrestling nerd heart with joy, just to see something like that happen, even though you weren't successful in smashing her into the pavement. But as you pointed out, when you're not in the ring,
Mm-hmm.
laws exist, and
Yes.
the authorities don't take kindly to delicious violence of that form on the streets, sadly.
No, they don't. I mean, there's only so much you can get away with in the world of wrestling. You can only hand wave and be like, "Oh no, it's just part of the show, dearie. Don't mind me smashing this person into the concrete."
Exactly. But but just like so, and that is on. I found it through your Instagram, so
Hmm.
we'll plug the socials here in a bit. But so everyone listening at home can wander to Auntie Hydie's Instagram, where there is footage of the Christmas parade, and see exactly what I'm talking about. And that's just one of those like little things wrestling related that makes this jaded old heart fill to the brim of chaotic happiness.
Yes, I mean, I would prefer. It would have been lovely if perhaps maybe in the future we could have a violent altercation, much akin to Stone Cold Steve Austin and Booker T in that supermarket.
I say, if nothing else, like you could take things literally. Veritable street fight. Take it out to the streets,
Hmm.
or try to think, or you could like, well, that's an awful lot to do, but like I'm trying to like think of all the places that Lance Steele and Darkness Crabtree, they had a match that lasted like 23 hours or
Hmm.
23 and a half hours, and the cameras just stopped following them after a while as they started brawling off. It was Falls Count Anywhere, and they fought for 23 and a half hours and ended up like wandering back to the arena where they're doing a double shot weekend, and finished the match just randomly day two. And but we only got to see part of that because there's only so many hours in the day. But I just imagine, a knight and a geriatric old man just pummeling each other down the streets, and just the looks that they must have gotten doing that. But
Oh
unfortunately,
yeah.
the old days of like 2005, when we didn't have cell phones to catch every bit of the action.
Hmm.
Halcyon days, though.
Pity, but we certain elements of it still live, even in small doses. I wouldn't be too surprised if I believe the movie was Deadpool and Wolverine. Apparently, these two blokes were fighting in a car, and they fought for so long that they passed out. I
Yeah.
would imagine that those two were fighting and ended up sleeping like that, and then as soon as they woke up, they realized where they were, and it just kept fighting.
Just to start it all over again. Oh, and that
Yes.
had to have lasted forever too, because both of those individuals are known for their stamina and healing abilities too. So
Oh
sleeping is not
yes.
necessarily their strong suit either. So that must have been, oh, good thing they were out in a variation of area where time has no meaning. Because shoot, who knows how long it would have lasted.
Oh yes, I watched that film because I heard that the Void was in it, and turns out it was a different Void.
Well,
Mm. In fact, but it did give me an idea. If there was a way I could actually make a piece of the Void, basically be something that is hospitable to other people, and allow them to kind of fight in there, that would be beautiful. But well, that wouldn't work out. It probably would melt away and they would all be drowning. It would not work.
there's niches in wrestling. I mean, this is the the sadistic part of me. Like, there's niches in wrestling. If you promote it just right, there might be like, are you gonna get rich off that show? No, but
It will
art.
be entertaining as all hell.
Yeah, I guess when you're doing things for art isn't always for profit.
That is true. That is true. And I do want to send some of my opponents screaming into the void, but if the intention is to not have them drown so that they could have a proper fight, that would be a little antithetical to it.
Well, so that's something to keep in the back of the old brain box, and like once once these stars align, and may you get I don't know, get some structure in the void. Maybe, I mean, I am not no stretch of the imagination a master of the void, so I'm not sure how structure would work there. But I don't know. Maybe as you gain power, more souls, more corruption. Maybe you can build the Auntie Hydie dream house, which also includes a wrestling ring for this unnamed Auntie Hydie wrestling project.
That would be beautiful. Oh, that does remind me, however. You also mentioned before promoting the socials, if I'm not mistaken, but I do have a little project coming up. In fact, I have for San Francisco, there's a promotion I faced there called Full Queer. And I've had a little spat with Adventures in Science, Darwin Finch, and his partner Laura Fraser. Basically, I've been a little thorn in their side, corrupting their friends and turning them against them, and I've even established a link with Darwin Finch and have possessed him a few times. And for a lot has happened in between the last show and the upcoming one in February 22nd, the year of our Lord 2025. And I wish to, well, no proper footage was taken of it, so I had to recreate it using, it takes too long to animate properly. So what I'm going to do instead, are you familiar with visual novels?
Oh, yes.
Yes. No dating in this one. But I will do it in that style. And I'm going to recreate those events. And it is quite the fascinating fight.
See, I was, you say you beat me to the segue on that one, because I was going to bring up that you mentioned that you're working on what us mere mortals would be calling a comic, which you refer to it as such, when you displayed a page of said comic on Instagram. And I was going to ask about where does that come from, and like kind of like what's the timeline on the release of that, if there is a set one.
Yes. You're referring to the Void page.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, yes. That one is from there was a timeline involved, but much had happened. In between dealing with Adventures in Science, having my will stripped away and made into Rosa's puppet for a stint in MPW, a lot of stuff happened. But let's see. I'm hoping to get the comic that particular page is attached to, called Drowning Storm. I'm hoping to get that out either the end of January or the beginning of February. But that might be put on hold because of this special animation. Well, no, it's not animated. It's a bunch of stills talking to each other and some backgrounds. It's going to be beautiful when it comes out. I'm very happy for it. But let's put a tentative date on the comic, which is going to be a tentative date of the last week of January. Let's have that for the kiddies. Then towards the middle of February, that's when my little visual novel, I guess, art piece? I don't know. My little art piece will be coming out, the recap and in-between interlude for Full Queer. And actually, I will be promoting this stuff on my Twitch stream. I've taken to Twitch, because especially since I heard on Twitch there are people who make little avatars of themselves called VTubers. And if I know how to master this technology, I might be able to show it will have to be an approximation, but I can show my true face when I'm not wearing this bloody thing. And a representation of it for all to see. People can finally see me. Do you know how beautiful that is, Rob?
I don't know. I'm like salivating at the thought already. So that's why I've kind of just like fell silent at that.
Oh, my many eyes. People can see my many eyes. It is beautiful. Oh, I've been told it's quite horrible, but, I don't care. We're just going to share it all and see who has the stomach for it.
What's the worst that can happen, really? I mean, maybe a Halloween 3 scenario. I don't know. I mean, that might be that could be the worst or the best. Who am I to judge?
Oh, don't worry. I'm not going to melt anyone's faces with masks, just so it's clear. No faces shall be melted. No children shall be harmed. I was created by a child. I was meant to protect a child. I don't harm children.
Save the innocent. Let them make their own bad decisions, and then we get to corrupt them. That's how we roll.
And just for the record, my Jekyll, the one who used to have this body, she died as an adult, not as a child. Just so we're clear.
So we talked about where can we find you on Twitch? And let's go ahead and just plug the rest of the social media on it. Well, Instagram, Twitter, etc., etc., etc. Where can we find you online?
Oh, yes. You can find me at auntiehydie.com, just to spell it out. It is... Okay. Oh, it can bloody be shown. Okay, so it's AUNTIEHYDIE. All one word for Instagram. For Twitter, there's an underscore at it. I'm on Bluesky. My Twitch is Auntie Hydie. All one word. Very easy to find.
And if I do my job as a podcaster, I'll throw all those links in the descriptor. I'm trying to be better about that. I've got a good streak of actually putting people's social media in the descriptors, so it's easy for everyone to find. But so social media out of the way, where can we find you in the upcoming weeks? Where can we see you live?
Oh, yes. I don't know how long this will take before it is released, but I do have a show at... let's see, what was it? Oh, yes, NTLL, January 25th, the year of our Lord 2025, in Palmdale, California, the Transplant Brewery. This is going to be for Night Victoria. I believe it was called Best of the Year. And then Full Queer will be February 22nd, the year of our Lord 2025. It's a habit. It's a weird verbal tick of mine. But also, Comptomania. Comptomania, that one is also going to be in February. The exact date will be posted soon, I believe. But I have been waiting for a very long time for my title shot against Maserati. She's the current holder of the Comptomania's Women's Championship. That title has been out of my grip time and time again. I am the rightful contender for it. but she became injured. And as soon as the next show came up and we thought that she would be right as rain, ready to come back into the ring, no, she'd get pulled away from us. Each time I've been snubbed by fate. But no more. I want her to be here at her full strength so that when I finally break her, it'll be all the more satisfying. I will, as these developments happen, I will promote them on my Instagram, on my Twitch. I'm planning on doing weekly streams on Sundays at 7 Pacific Standard Time, unless I'm booked that day. Obviously, what are you going to do? Especially since I need the voidlings to put their little seals on me so I don't interfere with the technology. And if I'm out and about, they can't do that. So, I will make announcements. I will keep these darlings engaged, up to date. And oh, look, here's one of my little come on, you little bloody... This is why the voidlings take care of technology instead of me.
Oh, there we go.
Yes!
There we go. That's going to be the... if we got that to work, so we'll have to make that the screenshot for the week. To plug this show before it drops out. I say, but no one will hear about this until
technology.
And then I'm promoting it, except the picture will already be put out there as we're having this conversation, because it'll be a couple days before this interview drops. But that being said, Auntie Hydie, thank you for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure. It's been great being illuminated by your ways, and I've been looking forward to this interview for quite some time.
Oh, thank you very much, Rob. I do always enjoy a chance to have a lovely chat. And don't worry, you shall be spared. I shall not enter thine dreams.
Yay! the wife will be happy about that, since in case I kick or yell or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So she'll appreciate it too. I'll just preemptively thank you for her as well.
Yes. Well, I mean, I may or may not have whispered in your ear, book ID for the podcast. Okay, I may have done that once or twice, but aside from that, no other shenanigans have taken place.
Hey, in this capitalistic society, any advantage you can get is technically the best one. So,
yes.
Not to get too political, but we'll drop it there.
Yes, there are some limits that unfortunately I must abide by. I can't be too overt with certain acts of the supernatural. There are some rules I must follow. So I do like to keep the more subtle approaches. You understand.
Oh, of course. But thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise.
MLW Confusion is a weekly podcast that is written and performed by Rob Kammer and hosted by Spotify for podcasters. MLW Confusion is part of the Urban Wrestling Network, and you can check them out and check out the Major League Pod on YouTube at Urban Wrestling NW. The background music for this section is Ruined by Day, performed by Alan Schroeder. If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to support, please like, subscribe, and tell your friends, family, and enemies. Leaving a review is also helpful. Word of mouth of advertisement is very important for small podcasts such as this. Social media links can be found in the description, but Twitter and Instagram are at the Nova of Cass, TheNovaofCass, and Facebook is at MLW Confusion, all one word. If you'd like to support monetarily and help upgrade my equipment, please check out my virtual chip jar at ko-fi.com/Casanova. Or if you prefer more bang for your buck, you can go to patreon.com/Casanova, CASSONOVA, whereas for as little as $2, backers get access to the podcast early and without those pesky ads, plus other exclusive content. So join the crew that is headed up by Keith Wynn, Alan Schroeder, Alex McCarthy, and Elenia, and check it out. You can also find t-shirts, coffee mugs, and other merch at the Confusion Podcast on Teespring. Also, be sure to check out the description to find some affiliate links for, well, WWE merch, coffee machines, ice makers, and much more. For business inquiries such as ads and sponsorships, please email rzkammer, that's Kamerer, at comcast.net. Thank you for listening.